My name's Marcus. I'm 28, and I work in marketing at a tech startup in the city. It's one of those companies that tries really hard to feel casual, standing desks, free snacks, beer on Fridays, but the hierarchy's still there. You just pretend it isn't until someone reminds you. I'd been there about 2 years when this happened. Mid-level strategist, decent at my job, ambitious enough to want more but not desperate enough to burn out chasing it. My days were pretty standard: morning stand-ups, client calls, too much coffee, the occasional late night when a campaign needed tweaking. I liked the work. It felt like I was building something, even if most days that something was just another slide deck. Olivia Chen was our CEO. 35, sharp as hell, the kind of person who could walk into a room and immediately make you sit up straighter. She'd founded the company 6 years ago with 2 partners who'd since moved on, and now she ran it with this calm, focused intensity that everyone respected. I didn't work directly under her, my boss reported to her boss, but I'd been in enough meetings to know she noticed everything. She'd ask questions that made you realize you hadn't thought something through, but she never made you feel stupid about it. Just aware. We didn't really interact much. A nod in the hallway. The occasional good work on that pitch email. She kept her personal life locked down tight. No one knew if she was dating anyone, where she lived, what she did on weekends. It wasn't cold, exactly. Just private. So when Tyler invited me to his wedding, Olivia Chen wasn't even on my radar. Tyler and I went to college together. Good guy, one of those friends you don't see for months and then pick up right where you left off. He was marrying Emma, who I'd met a handful of times and liked well enough. The wedding was on a Saturday in early October, at this upscale venue on the waterfront with floor-to-ceiling windows and those elegant floral arrangements that probably cost more than my rent. I showed up alone. I'd been casually seeing someone over the summer, but that had fizzled out around August, and I wasn't torn up about it. Weddings solo weren't terrible: you could drift between conversations, leave early if you wanted, avoid the forced small talk with someone's plus one who clearly didn't want to be there. Cocktail hour was the usual scene. Past appetizers, an open bar, people clustered in groups catching up. I grabbed a beer and found some college friends near the windows. We were mid-conversation about someone's new job when I saw her. Olivia. Standing across the room near the bar, holding a glass of white wine, talking to an older woman I didn't recognize. I did a full double take. She was wearing this dark green dress, elegant but not flashy, and her hair was down. I'd only ever seen it pulled back in a bun or ponytail at work. She looked different. Not just the clothes, but the way she was standing. Relaxed. Like she'd left the CEO part of herself in a different building. Our eyes met for a second. She paused mid-sentence, then gave me this small nod. I nodded back. We both looked away. I turned back to my friends, but I wasn't really listening anymore. My brain was trying to process it. What were the odds? Tyler never mentioned knowing anyone from my company, and Emma worked in education. I spent the next 20 minutes pretending to care about someone's opinion on the new Marvel movie while keeping Olivia in my peripheral vision. Dinner seating was assigned. I found my name card at a table near the back, not the wedding party, but not the distant relatives either. I sat down, made polite conversation with the couple to my left, and then someone slid into the chair directly beside me. Olivia. Small world, she said, setting down her wine. Yeah, I said, probably sounding like an idiot. I didn't know you'd be here. Emma's my cousin. Well, second cousin. Our moms are close. She adjusted her napkin on her lap. You're friends with Tyler? College. We lived in the same dorm freshman year. She smiled, and it was strange seeing her smile like that, genuine, not the professional version she used in meetings. I promise I didn't arrange the seating chart. Wouldn't have blamed you if you did. She laughed, and the couple across from us glanced over. I suddenly felt hyper-aware of the context. This was my CEO. At a wedding. Sitting next to me. Making jokes. Dinner was surprisingly easy. We talked about the venue, the food, how nice the ceremony setup looked. Safe topics. She asked about my weekend, and I told her I'd gone for a long run that morning and immediately regretted it because my knees weren't 22 anymore. She admitted she'd spent the morning arguing with her sister about whether to bring a date to this thing. Why didn't you? I asked before I could think about whether that was appropriate. She tilted her head slightly. Didn't feel like performing. Weddings are exhausting when you're trying to make someone else feel comfortable. I got that. I'd brought dates to weddings before, and half the time you ended up babysitting them through conversations with people they didn't know. It was easier alone. The lights dimmed. Everyone turned toward the doors at the back of the hall. The officiant took his place up front, and the music shifted, strings, soft and swelling. The wedding party walked down the aisle first. Bridesmaids in dusty blue, groomsmen in charcoal gray. Tyler stood at the front looking nervous and happy, hands clasped in front of him. Then the music changed, and everyone stood. Emma appeared at the far end of the aisle. The dress, the veil, the whole moment. She looked beautiful, obviously, but more than that, she looked sure. Like she'd already made the decision 1,000 times and this was just the part where everyone else got to see it. I felt that stupid lump in my throat you get at weddings. Not because I was envious, exactly, but because there's something about watching two people choose each other in front of everyone they know that just hits you. The vulnerability of it. The optimism. I was watching Emma walk closer, watching Tyler's face, when I felt Olivia lean toward me. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but clear. Stop looking at the bride. Look at me. I turned. She was inches away, her eyes steady on mine. Not smiling. Not teasing. Just looking at me like she'd been wanting to for a long time and finally decided to stop pretending she wasn't. I didn't know what to say. My brain flatlined. Around us, everyone was focused on Emma, on the ceremony, but in that moment the only thing that existed was Olivia's face and the way my pulse was suddenly very loud in my ears. She held my gaze for another beat, then turned back toward the aisle like nothing had happened. I followed her lead, but I wasn't seeing anything anymore. The ceremony continued, vows, rings, laughter, the kiss, and I stood and sat and clapped when everyone else did, but my brain was still stuck on those 8 words. Stop looking at the bride. Look at me. What the hell did that mean? The reception kicked off with toasts and dancing. I tried to act normal. Olivia and I didn't talk about it. We stayed near each other through the first few dances, making small talk with other guests, laughing at the best man's speech. She seemed completely unfazed, like she hadn't just derailed my entire night with one sentence. I kept stealing glances at her. The way she held her wine glass. The way she laughed at someone's joke, her hand briefly touching their arm. The way she stood slightly apart from groups, always observing. Around 9, a slow song started. Couples drifted onto the dance floor, Tyler and Emma in the center, swaying close, her head on his shoulder. The lights dimmed further, and the room took on that soft, romantic glow that makes everything feel more significant than it is. Olivia leaned toward me again, but this time her voice was normal volume. Want to get some air? I nodded. We slipped out through a side door that led to a garden terrace. The venue backed up to the water, and you could hear it lapping against the dock. String lights were hung between trees, and there were a few benches scattered around, but no one else was out there. Too cold, probably. The temperature had dropped once the sun went down. We walked down one of the gravel paths without talking. I shoved my hands in my pockets. She wrapped her arms around herself, and I almost offered her my jacket before realizing how cliché that would be. So, I said finally. What was that? She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. I don't know. Impulse. You don't strike me as an impulsive person. I'm not. Usually. She stopped walking and turned to face me. I noticed you. Months ago. The way you present in meetings. How you listen before you talk. It's rare. I didn't know what to say to that. Olivia. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. I just wanted you to know I see you. That's all. The water sloshed against the dock. Somewhere inside, music was playing, muffled and distant. I don't want to misread this, I said carefully. You're not. You're my CEO. I know. She looked tired suddenly. I know what that means. The optics. The power dynamics. I've thought about it. A lot. And I don't have a good answer. She glanced back toward the venue. I was in a relationship a few years ago. Someone I met through work. It ended badly. She paused, choosing her words. He used my position. Implied I'd helped his career more than I had. It made me realize how careful I have to be. I'm not going to do that. I know. That's why I said something tonight. She met my eyes again. But careful still matters. For both of us. I believed her. And I respected her for saying it out loud instead of pretending the complications didn't exist. What do you want? I asked. She smiled, but it was sad. Honestly? I don't know. I'm tired of being alone, but I'm also tired of performing. And dating as a CEO is, she laughed softly. It's a minefield. Everyone wants something. Or they're intimidated. Or they think they need to prove they're not intimidated, which is worse. I get that. Do you? Not the CEO part. But the performing part, yeah. I've been on dates where I spent the whole time trying to figure out who the other person wanted me to be. She nodded slowly. That's exactly it. We stood there for a while, not talking. The music changed inside, something upbeat now, people probably dancing in groups, ties loosened, heels kicked off. We should go back, she said eventually. Yeah. We walked toward the entrance, slower than we'd left. At the door, she paused. Monday will be normal, she said. We'll pretend this didn't happen if that's easier. I thought about that. About going back to the office, to emails and meetings and polite nods in the hallway. About pretending I hadn't spent the last hour replaying her voice in my head. What if I don't want to pretend? She looked surprised. Then we'll figure it out. Carefully. Carefully, I repeated. Very carefully. We went back inside. The night wound down. We said goodbye in the parking lot, professional and distant, and I drove home with the windows down even though it was freezing, trying to clear my head. Monday morning felt surreal. I walked into the office expecting everything to be different, but it wasn't. Same people, same coffee, same standing desk. I sat through a morning meeting where Olivia gave updates on Q4 targets, and she didn't look at me any differently than anyone else. But then around 2, I got an email from her directly. Subject line, campaign input needed. She wanted my thoughts on a pitch we were developing for a potential client. It wasn't unusual, she sometimes reached out to people across teams, but it also wasn't common. I wrote back with my notes, keeping it professional. Her response came 20 minutes later, good. Can you stop by my office at 4? I showed up at 4 on the dot. Her office was on the top floor, glass-walled with a view of the city. She was standing by the window when I knocked, and she waved me in. Close the door. I did. My heart was doing something stupid. This is about the campaign, she said, and I couldn't tell if she was reassuring me or herself. But I also wanted to say Saturday wasn't a mistake. For me. It wasn't for me either. Good. She sat down at her desk, and I took the chair across from her. We spent the next 40 minutes talking through the campaign, and it was normal, productive even. But there were moments when she leaned forward to look at my notes, when our eyes met across the desk where the air felt heavier. As I was leaving, she said, I'm working late Friday. If you're around, we could grab dinner. I'm around. Neutral location. Just dinner. Just dinner, I agreed. That week was strange. We kept things professional at work, but there were small shifts. A coffee break where we ended up in the kitchen at the same time and talked about books we were reading. An evening when we were both still at the office past 8, and she brought me takeout from the Thai place down the street. Texts that started work-related and drifted personal. Friday, we went to a quiet restaurant in a neighborhood neither of us lived in. The kind of place with dim lighting and tables far enough apart that you could have a real conversation. We talked about normal things. Family, she had 2 sisters, I had 1 brother. Childhoods, hers in California, mine in the Midwest. What we wanted before our careers took over. She'd wanted to be a painter once. I'd wanted to write. Why didn't you? I asked. Practical reasons. Money. Pressure. The usual. She swirled her wine. But also, I wasn't good enough. And I knew it. Starting the company felt like channeling that same energy into something I could actually build. Do you miss it? Sometimes. Mostly I miss having time for things that don't matter. I got that. The older I got, the more I realized how much of my life was optimization. Efficient workouts, productive hobbies, networking brunches. When was the last time I did something just because it felt good? After dinner, we walked back to where we'd parked. The street was quiet, just a few people heading home from late shifts. She stopped by her car. I need to say something, she said. Okay. I'm scared of how this looks. Powerful woman, younger guy who works for her. It's a cliché, and worse, it's a cliché people will use to dismiss both of us. I know. But she looked at me, and I saw how hard this was for her. I don't want to let fear make my decisions anymore. I've done that. It doesn't make you less lonely. It just makes you careful and lonely. So what do we do? I don't know. Keep it private for now? Not because I'm ashamed, but because I need to know this is real before it becomes everyone else's business. That makes sense. She hesitated, then, do you want to come over? Just to talk. Nothing. I know, I said. Yeah. I'd like that. Her apartment was in a high-rise downtown, minimalist and clean in a way that felt intentional. Art on the walls, actual paintings, not prints. Books on shelves. A couch that looked expensive but comfortable. She poured us wine, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, talking. About work, about the election coming up, about a documentary she'd watched. Normal things. But the space between us felt charged, like we were both waiting for something. Around midnight, she said, I should let you go. It's late. Yeah. Neither of us moved. Marcus, she said quietly. Yeah. I don't want you to go. I set down my glass. Then I won't. The kiss happened slowly. She leaned toward me, and I met her halfway, and it was soft, tentative, like we were both testing whether this was allowed. Her hand came up to my jaw, and I pulled her closer, and for a few seconds, nothing else existed. When we broke apart, she was smiling. Okay. Okay? This is real. Yeah, I said. It is. I didn't stay that night, we both agreed we needed to take it slow, but I left around 1, and I spent the whole drive home replaying it. Her mouth, her hands, the way she'd looked at me after. The next few weeks were careful. We saw each other outside of work, dinners, walks along the waterfront, one Saturday afternoon at a museum where we barely looked at the art because we were too busy talking. At the office, we kept our distance, but it was getting harder. I'd catch myself staring at her in meetings, and once she caught me and had to hide a smile. We talked about the age gap, 7 years, and decided it didn't matter. Not to us. But we knew it would to other people. We talked about what it meant that I worked for her, even indirectly. She was careful about that, never gave me preferential treatment, never asked me to do anything that would blur lines. And we talked about what we wanted. Not in some grand, future planning way, but just, what did this look like? Where was it going? I don't need it to be serious right away, she said one night. We were at her place, tangled together on the couch after dinner. But I need to know you're thinking about it. That this isn't just convenient. It's not convenient, I said. It's complicated as hell. She laughed. True. But I'm thinking about it. About you. A lot. Good. Then one of my coworkers saw us leaving together. It was innocent, we'd both worked late, and she was giving me a ride because my car was in the shop, but the next day, someone made a comment. You and Olivia seem close. I played it off, but the damage was done. People started paying attention. Noticing when we were both in the kitchen at the same time. Whispering when we left within 10 minutes of each other. The rumors started small. Are they together? I saw them at that wedding. Someone said she gave him a promotion. That last one wasn't even true, I hadn't been promoted, but it didn't matter. Olivia faced her own scrutiny. A board member made a pointed comment during a meeting about optics and professional boundaries. She didn't name me, but everyone knew who she meant. HR flagged it. Not formally, just a quiet conversation where they reminded her that while there wasn't a policy against relationships, there were concerns about favoritism. She disclosed it officially, and I got moved to a different reporting structure, not a demotion, just a lateral shift to avoid any appearance of impropriety. I felt guilty. I'm complicating your career. We were at her apartment, and she was pacing. You don't get to decide that for me. I'm just saying. I know what you're saying, and I'm telling you I'm making my own choices. You don't get to protect me from them. I'm not trying to. Yes, you are. She stopped pacing and faced me. You're treating me like I don't understand what I'm doing. Like I need you to make it easier by walking away. And I don't want that. Then what do you want? I want you to stay. I want us to figure this out. But I need you to trust that I know what I'm risking. We argued, not yelling, but intense. The kind of fight where you're both saying true things that hurt. I was scared of being the reason she lost respect at work. She was frustrated that I thought she couldn't handle it. Eventually, I left. We didn't talk for a few days. I called Tyler, needed perspective. He listened to the whole thing, then said, "Do you love her?" I don't know. Maybe. It's early. Okay, but do you want to find out? Yeah. Then what's the problem? If you're both willing to deal with the noise doesn't matter. He made it sound simple. It wasn't. But he also wasn't wrong. I texted Olivia, "Can we talk?" She suggested coffee. Neutral ground. We met at a place neither of us usually went to, and we sat outside even though it was November and freezing. I'm scared, I admitted. That I'm going to mess this up for you. You might, she said. But I might mess it up for you too. That's the deal. What if people don't take me seriously at work anymore? Then they're idiots. But also, yeah, that might happen. And it might happen to me too. And we have to decide if we're okay with that. Are you? She took a sip of her coffee. I talked to my sister. She asked me if I was happy. And I realized I am. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy. So yeah. I'm okay with it. I thought about the last 2 months. The dinners. The conversations. The way she looked at me like I was more than just a role or a job title. I'm okay with it too, I said. Then we keep going. Eyes open. Eyes open. Months passed. We didn't hide the relationship, but we didn't perform it either. People adjusted. The gossip faded into background noise, replaced by new drama, someone's project failure, a surprise resignation, the usual churn. I got promoted. Different team, different manager, and Olivia recused herself from the decision entirely. It was based on merit, and I knew that, but there were still whispers. I learned to ignore them. The relationship became normal. Not in a boring way, but in a this is my life way. We had routines. Sunday mornings, she'd make coffee while I cooked breakfast. Tuesday nights, we'd try a new restaurant. We had stupid arguments about him leaving dishes in the sink and her being controlling about schedules. We navigated them without drama, compromise, humor, patience. One Sunday in late spring, we were walking through the city with no destination. Just wandering, the way you do when you have time and no obligations. "Remember that wedding?" she said. "Which part?" "The part where I told you to stop looking at the bride." I laughed. "Yeah, I remember. I thought I'd imagined it for a while." I almost didn't say anything. I was so close to just sitting there and pretending I didn't want to. "Why did you?" She thought about it. "Because I was tired of pretending. And because you looked like someone who'd understand that." "I'm glad you did. I would have spent months wondering." She smiled. "I don't usually gamble. But you felt worth it." We reached her building, our building, really. I'd been staying there more often than not. We took the elevator up, unlocked the door, stepped inside. The evening unfolded the way evenings do. We made dinner together, argued mildly about what to watch, settled on a documentary neither of us paid full attention to. She curled up against me on the couch, her head on my shoulder, and I thought about how normal this felt. How easy. It wasn't perfect. We still had bad days. Work stress. External pressure. Moments where the age gap or the power dynamics reared their heads in small, annoying ways. But it was real. We'd built something. Not because the universe conspired or fate intervened, but because we both decided it was worth the effort. Later, getting ready for bed, she caught me staring at her in the bathroom mirror. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. Just, this is good." "Yeah," she said. "It is."